Got a really good one for you today. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room. So we're going to talk about how some dramatic, I'll call them dramatic changes in philosophy can really help you with your running and your racing. Let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4. I was born to run.
Hey team, got a really good one for you today. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is most amateur ultra runners in general, do not have enough time to incorporate what we are taught or considered traditional endurance training. We're all short on time. We just don't have enough time to train like the pros. And I'm going to spell out 4 case studies from some of my athletes that we've had great success with who were short on time, who didn't have enough time to, again, do what I consider traditional endurance building training, and more importantly, the philosophy around it. So we're going to talk about how some dramatic, I'll call them dramatic changes in philosophy can really help you with your running and your racing. Let's go. So it's already warm, 55 degrees, 9 a.m. and I am at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. I'm gonna climb up to the top of the tram today. We've got 4,000 feet of climbing in 6 miles, so quite the amount of accumulation in vertical, and just a good testing ground. Haven't done it in a while, so let's go. Okay, first athlete I want to talk about is Ken. Ken's a triathlete and has 2 kids in a new demanding job, so quite busy. Typically his race distance was what they call Olympic distance and half Ironman distances, so up to maybe 4.5 hours in race time. And at this distance, he is very good. He was the national champion age grouper in his age group at the half Ironman distance. And now he's looking to bump up to the Ironman distance, but because of his schedule, he cannot increase his training time. We have to keep it fixed at what he was used to before. The problem I start to see occur when athletes are short on time or don't have enough time to put all that volume in, appropriate volume for the distance, is that they start placing emphasis on their long run. Rightfully so, and we've kind of been conditioned to think that way. But what happens when you don't have the efficiency and economy of a lot more volume, you're not efficient for your longer runs. And what happens is that you end up working harder, slower, and going beyond all the time with your long run every weekend. There sets in this chronic fatigue where you're then using the entire week to recover from that big run or big 2 runs over the weekend. So now you're missing out on some intensity that will really help, which is a big part of this video. So back to Ken. Since we knew his training volume week was fixed, we did not fight that. We did not try to add more volume. What we did is we maintained the philosophy of quality over quantity. And through all his Olympic and half Ironman training, we did a lot of threshold and VO2 max. And so our shift in philosophy was to double down on more threshold intervals and maybe a little bit longer in length intervals than he was used to, that again will capitalize on that physiology for an Ironman distance. And it worked to perfection. He came in second in his age group for the national championship at Ironman distance triathlon in Florida. Okay, when I was coaching Ken, that was quite early in my coaching career, but this strategy that we employed really stuck with me kind of throughout and created a lot of my core philosophical beliefs of what age group and amateur runners need. And so that leads us to Katherine. Katherine was a little bit opposite of Ken. She came in with a ton of mountain and endurance experience and ultra experience, over 10 years. So she was able to put the volume in and had all this time spent in the mountains. But when she called me, wanted to work with me for the Leadville 100, she now had kids and a full-time job and not able to put in near the amount of volume that she's used to. So the number one thing I had to do is I really had to coach her and gain her trust that we can reduce volume, increase intensity that she really wasn't used to doing, and she can thrive. So the take home here is that we, instead of how I view doing a 3 to 4 month base foundation block before a race and then shifting to the specific phase as we approach the race, I viewed her 10 plus years of high volume as her base. And then we used her build up to Leadville 100 as the specific phase where we introduced more intensity. And again, utilizing all the base she had. So again, the number one thing I had to do was to get her trust. And it worked. We actually consistently trained at 5 to 7 hours per week for a 100-mile race. And she just missed the podium. She was 7th overall at Leadville 100. So the take home here is if you have a lot of experience, maybe you don't always have to go back to relying on continuing to build a high volume base. If you're not used to doing intensity, go quality over quantity. So now we're going to move on to Margot. I've talked about Margot a lot. She was actually in my book, The Cool Impossible, and the book, Born to Run 2. So you're going to start to see how some of this Kenneth philosophy and Katherine philosophy starts to morph a little bit and gets a little bit more intricate. So Margot, she's the athlete I've worked with the longest, over 15 years. She lives in Victor, Idaho, which is just over Teton Pass from Jackson, about an hour away. And so she has very, very harsh winters like we do here in Jackson. She lives on a farm. She had, at that time, 5 kids at home and didn't have a job, but you could argue that 5 kids is like 3+ full-time jobs, right? And she originally came to me as a triathlete. She raced for Team USA as an age grouper at World Triathlon Championships. And we kind of graduated away from triathlon and more into mountain running and ultra running. And she's raced in Europe. She's raced all over the country. She was on the podium at TDS in her age group. She was 17th overall, 2nd U.S. woman at Tour de France, which is a 200-mile super, super big mountain ultra in Europe.
What's your favorite, one of your favorites? Yeah, go through a couple of them.
El Cruz, this was in Patagonia. God, I forgot about that race.
Yeah, it's like a wind chime.
And this is Madagascar. There's a bunch of different ones in here.
No, Tour Giant. What'd you get for Tour Giant?
A jacket. One of my favorite. This is Monument Valley.
Oh yeah.
So the Native American, who are which I don't know what tribe.
Probably Navajo.
Navajo. So you're on their land.
Yep, yep.
And then they make the awards.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. 3rd place female. Those were some of my triathlons. It's kind of all falling apart now. Yeah, that was another Monument Valley. They're all over here. Anyhow, As you can see, I don't really care. But I kept them.
We care, but we
kept
don't.
them.
We care.
The issue that we ran into with Margot, not only does she have 5 kids, so obviously time is at a premium, but with our harsh winters, we traditionally could not use kind of the early season months as a way to base build. So we turned the endurance pyramid upside down. And all winter long, we worked on quality, worked on improving her threshold, a lot of treadmill work, and really kind of built strength endurance through more quality and reduced the volume. And then as the season started to open up, the snow started to melt, and she was able to get higher and higher into the mountains, we started then to build her volume. So she took strength endurance and then applied it to specific endurance training relative to the races she was doing on any given year. And we would always position these races a little bit later in the year, so she would have most of the summer to really get into the mountains and really put in a lot of volume relative to the distance of the race for that given year. And so key point here is we turned that endurance pyramid upside down, worked on quality first over the winter when it was kind of brutal to put in a lot of volume, and then did that during the summer when she could get up higher and higher and higher as the snow melted. Okay, so take home here is maybe look to, if you live in winter climate, maybe look to add a little bit more quality during the winter and then flip-flop it as summer opens up. And another key thing we did with Margot is that she was committed to this long term. So I think looking back now, one of the key components to her success was us really having a 2, 3, 4 year plan. We kind of knew what was coming, and I could put all that together and formulate this overall plan. So turning this pyramid upside down strategically worked through as we went year to year. We kind of, maybe one year that race kind of prepared her for another race the following year. So we really planned ahead. That really, really was helpful. So as you can see, as a coach, it's so fun to like figure out all the pieces to the puzzle to really create something really custom for the individual athlete, and seeing all that success come back. And how doing this over and over through time, you start to see patterns that can help everybody. And I think that's just what's so cool about being a coach, is there's always something to learn, but there's always a way to keep multiplying and adding and taking away and layering what works for the individual. And then this leaves us with Meredith. When she came to me for us to start working together, she had a small pro contract, but was still working full time. She was also a ski mountaineer and kind of all around mountain athlete, lots of time in the mountains, lots of time on skis in the winter, and had a few good years of ultra running. But what we found that was missing was all she was doing was a lot of slow vertical volume. This creates good strength, creates good base, but it makes us slow if that's all we're doing. So what I did is I did kind of 2 things. I put her through 2 days a week of faster, flatter training. And a lot of this was done at the track. So Tuesday, Thursday at the track, doing a variety of purposeful intervals. And then opposite of that, during the week, to maintain some volume, I had her run to and from work, which ultimately was about 75 minutes each way. We didn't do this every day, but the idea was to get in more flatter, steady, faster miles that complements all the vertical she was doing on weekends and throughout the whole year, because she's on skis part of the year. And this was tremendously potent. And she went from kind of just an average low-level pro with a job to lining up at UTMB TDS and placing second overall at TDS. So we really turned and flipped the switch to a lot more quality while maintaining a lot of what she was doing in the mountains. And so I think Meredith is maybe the perfect example of what kind of a lot of athletes should gravitate to, is don't sleep on adding the intensity. Okay? This is really what catapulted her to that next level of ability within the pro ranks. Coming in second at TDS at UTMB helped her career skyrocket. She was able to sign a bigger contract after that, quit her job, and become a full-time athlete. And this all came from adding more quality. All right, speaking of not having enough time, I ran up to the tram, six miles, 4,000 feet of climbing, and then ran down to the gondola so I could then ride the gondola down and get on with my day. Ran out of time. So sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I think maybe the take home is that you can start through these examples of these athletes of mine. You can maybe start to see, pick and choose your spots of where you might fit into any of these scenarios, and maybe take on some of those philosophies that really worked for them, and see that creating more of a balance within life, within work, within family doesn't have to kind of force you to abandon getting better, accomplishing your goals. And with all these athletes, that they really focused on training. And it doesn't always mean that it's fun, but the outcome is massive. And that's what they remember. They remember all the hard work that put into creating a big goal and then accomplishing something massive for them. And I think that's really the take home, is that we can, again, really dissect. All right, battery died as I was closing this thing out, but I'm home now. And I guess a couple videos ago, I talked about how the greatest performance enhancer for ultra marathoning is learning to be able to perform when you don't want to perform. And maybe that kind of buttons into this video about sometimes we have to do the type of training maybe we don't want to do, or we don't see as fun, or maybe we do see as fun, but it's a little bit more structured, a little bit more strategy behind it, that for, again, some people might not see it as fun, but ultimately it leads to better performance, bigger accomplishments with our goals, whatever it be. That sometimes that just has to change, or isn't always what we want to do. Right, wrong, whatever. I guess that's just my commentary, right? So that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed this. I throw down questions. I know you're gonna have questions on this one. And yeah, thanks for coming along. Over and out from Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, home, Born to Run World. See you guys.